Get out of your own way, overcoming self-defeating behavior. Talking when nobody's listening. Oliver Wendell Holmes says this, and I quote, "Talking is like playing on the harp. There is as much in laying the hands on the strings to stop their vibration as in twanging them to bring out their music. Talking is like playing on the harp. There is as much in laying the hands on the strings to stop their vibration as in twanging them to bring out their music." From Oliver Wendell Holmes. I attended a seminary once where the contrast between two of the speakers made a lasting impression. Dr. Bernhardt was a charismatic entertainer. He knew how to engage an audience and generate enthusiasm. Dr. Smith was quiet and thoughtful, but not terribly inspiring. At first, the participants raved about the magnetic Bernhardt and joked about the boring Smith, but ultimately it was the latter who won over the group. She had been mindful of her audience. She had taken their questions seriously and listened to their concerns. Dr. Bernhardt had used them only as a foil for his routine. Perhaps the most notable distinction between the speakers was this. Bernhardt exceeded his time limit at every session and seemed to resent it when people started to fidget. Dr. Smith was more tuned in. At the first sign of restlessness, she would suggest taking a break. She never wore out her welcome. Why do you keep talking when people have heard enough? Wow. Let me ask that again. Why do you keep talking when people have heard enough? When we badly need to be heard, our conversation usually proceeds in three distinct phases. The first is an effort to communicate information or express a point of view. Once that is accomplished, other needs take over. In the second stage, the principal motivation is to relieve tension. Grabbing a way just to make ourselves feel better. We repeat or rephrase what we have already said or introduce irrelevant subjects. In the third phase, we detour into an area that might keep the listener's attention, just to keep from being abandoned. In sum, the motivation shifts from the need to communicate to the need to relieve tension, to the need to retain control. The listener who gets dragged into phases 2 and 3 is placed in the difficult position of having to find a way out without being impolite. If she can't, she ends up wasting her time and becoming exasperated. For the overzealous speaker, the price is even higher. She stands to lose respect and possibly even friends. In times of stress or excitement, the tension from keeping our feelings and thoughts to ourselves builds up. To many of us, it feels so good to unload that we forget our manners. We go from dialogue to monologue, launching an avalanche of words, unable to stop ourselves before becoming tiresome or rude. George Eliot says this, and I quote, "Blessed is the man who having nothing to say, abstains from giving in words evidence of the fact." Let me repeat that again. Blessed is the man who, having nothing to say, abstains from giving in words evidence of the fact. If you have this tendency, try to be aware of the stages of conversation and apply the brakes before you enter the annoying second stage or the impertinent third stage. Keep an eye on the other person's body language. If she fidgets or glances at her watch or her eyes become less focused, she is probably trying to figure out a way to cut you off without being discourteous. Your initial impulse might be to hold her attention by any means possible, but it's self-defeating to hold someone's attention by holding her hostage. You have to decide if the relief you will get from continuing is worth the price. What is the price? The other person will probably tune you out or make up an excuse to interrupt you. You can end up feeling embarrassed, foolish, or worse. If you wear out your welcome often enough, you'll find that people ignore you, forget to return your phone calls, and exclude you from gatherings. Unless your need for immediate gratification is stronger than your need for friends, learn to control yourself. Remember, you will be appreciated and admired if you don't pressure others to keep listening when they've heard enough. But if you use them as tension relievers, phase 2, and try to dominate their attention, phase 3, you might hold on to them for the moment, but lose them for the future. Here's a usable insight. When people stop listening, stop talking. Let me repeat that again. When people stop listening, stop talking. Taking action. Point 1. If you want to know if you're talking too long, keep your eye on the other person's body language. Point 2. If you notice signs of restlessness, ask yourself which you would rather feel, the frustration of not completing what you started to say, or the humiliation of talking when no one's listening. Point 3, stop yourself as soon as possible. Point 4, solicit the other person's ideas and comments. By turning your monologue into a dialogue, you might extend your welcome instead of wearing it out. Get out of your own way. Overcoming self-defeating behavior. Practical lessons for conquering procrastination, fear, envy, neediness, guilt, and more. By Mark Goulston, MD, and Philip Goldberg.